Good evening, everyone. Happy Saturday, and welcome to another edition of the Legal Score. I hope everyone is having an amazing final Saturday, March 2026. We are marching right on through this year. Thank you so much for everyone who is my new subscribers on YouTube as well as all the socials. And thank you for all of you all who are now joining me on Saturdays. So, I know you all are used to seeing me do a couple of shows by myself, but not today, you guys. I have an amazing, amazing colleague, friend, guest that you're not going to want to miss out on. He's a renowned author. He has boxing experience extraordinaire. Let me just give you guys a little bit of background on my guest. So, some of you all have met him, some of you all have not, but I'm going to reintroduce him to most of you. His name is Jack Hirsch. He's a prominent figure in the boxing world, uniquely known for having been both an amateur boxer, a competitor, and highly decorated journalist. His career spans over 4 decades, during which he transitioned from the sweet science inside the ring to becoming one of his most influential voice outside of it. Before his writing career took off, Hirsch was an active amateur boxer. He competed in the Golden Gloves in New York in the 70s, and he's also been a sparring partner. Notably, he served as a sparring partner for Vito Antuofermo, the former undisputed world middleweight champion. Jack is an indeed friend and treasured colleague, and it is my greatest joy to have him join me today. Ladies and gentlemen, my friend and boxer and writer extraordinaire, Mr. Jack Hirsch. Jack, good afternoon. How are
Hey,
you?
good afternoon, Sonja. We used to do so many shows together, but we haven't done one for a long time. You know what I feel like? I feel like I just came off injured reserve, and now I'm checking into the game, and you're part of the crowd, and you're giving me a little bit of an ovation because I've been off for so long as far as doing a show with you. But it's great to be back in action doing a show with you again.
I know. Thank you so much, Jack. And you're right. We used to do shows together 3 and 4 times a week. Those were the days I got busy with school, but don't worry. Hopefully, one of these days soon, I'll have a break. And I definitely do not plan on having you absent from my platform for an extensive amount of time that has been. Now, Jack, you've been busy since the last time we spoke with you. And so today I want to congratulate you on this newest achievement, your authorship of the Michael Spinks autobiography. I'm
There
super
we go.
excited with you.
An
There is a book.
authorized biography on Michael Spinks. Books never been written solely on Michael Spinks before, one of the greatest fighters in boxing history.
Mhm.
And here it is, Michael Jinks Spinks. And I really enjoyed doing this book with Michael. And the ironic part about it, I wasn't the biggest Michael Spinks fan when he was fighting. Nothing against him. I never rooted against him, and how I came to do a book on Michael Spinks. You're probably going to ask that next. I had written so many magazine stories, Sonia, one after the other, but all anyone asked me about was when I was writing a book. And you know
Mhm.
what it felt like? I felt like a ball player who's had a great career, a good career, I should say, but have never been on a championship team. So until that book was written, finally I did it. And, I wanted it to be on a high profile individual in the sports world and in the boxing world. But the problem is, some of the iconic boxers, most of them have had at least one book written on them. But somehow Michael Spinks never had a book written on him alone. And especially for it to be an authorized biography made it special to me. Because as you know, if someone, Sonia's a public personality, you do not need their permission to write a book on them. You could just go ahead and do it anyway. It's public
Right.
domain. And you know the terms better than I would, being in law school. But I called up Michael Spink's representative and I said, I'm going to write the book on him, whether I have his cooperation or not. It wasn't a threat or anything
Yeah.
like that. His representative understood. The only way I wasn't going to write the book on him when I made that call, if they told me he was about to come out with a book, I wouldn't have
Mhm.
wanted to crash the party. On moral grounds, I would have backed off. But I said, I'm going to write the book, but I'd love to have his cooperation for it to be an authorized biography. expecting the answer to be no. They said, well, let us get back to you. Let us talk to him. I get a call an hour later that Michael's on board. They put him on the phone, and it's all a go and
That's
authorized by our,
awesome.
where I was going to have his full cooperation, and I did.
Yeah, so do me a favor, Jack, because I put you on the left side because I want you to hold that book up again. And I'm gonna put you on the spotlight
I'll
here
keep
for
it on my
just a,
chin for the show or something.
yeah, I
Maybe
want
I'll make
to
it on me,
I
or
want to,
whatever.
there you go. I want to put you on the spotlight here for all of our audience. That book is available now. Michael Jinks Spinks, authorized biography. I love how you put that, by Jack Hirsch. Tell our viewers how they can find that book, and we'll put the link in the comments a little bit later on,
Well,
Jack.
right now, the best way to get it, you go on the Amazon or Barnes and Noble websites. It's on several other websites as well, but
Mhm.
those are the most common. Those are the best known. Amazon or Barnes and Noble website, and order it that way. I mean, that's the simplest way of getting it. Eventually, it's going to find its way, hopefully very soon, into the regular bookstores. That's the plan, with the publisher. But it just came out now, so the best way to order it online to get it quick, yeah, the quickest way possible.
I love that. And congratulations again, Jack. I'll have you hold that up again a
Yeah,
little
and
bit
that's
later
back
on.
there, Michael
Oh,
Jinks things
yes, I
with the
love
glove.
that. All right, y'all heard it here first. Jack once again has done the most. And Jack, this is really big. I mean, this is not your first authorship by a long shot. But you're the president of the New York State Boxing Hall of
No,
Fame.
no, that was just
You
temporary
were
as president of New York State Boxing Hall of Fame. I was a six-term president of the Boxing Writers Association of America.
okay.
That I took great pride in. The other thing I did just temporarily, stepped in for a little
Like an
while,
interim.
but it
Hmm.
meant a lot to me being president of the Boxing Writers Association of America. The 8 years before I became president, I was a vice president, then 6 years president. I'm on the board of directors. I'm the equivalent right at this moment of, let's say, Secretary of State,
Okay.
of the boxing writers right now. I have a lot of clout, a lot of pull, thankfully.
I love
That the
it.
president, Joe Santoliquido, values me tremendously, and I appreciate that.
I love that. And everyone coming in, please say hello. We see you watching. We see you on YouTube and here on the socials. Please say hello and greet us this afternoon with Jack Hirsch. Jack, are you still the senior American correspondent for
Oh
Boxing
yeah,
News?
yeah. That's been since 1989. The senior American correspondent. It's called now Boxing News Monthly. At the
Hmm.
start of 2026,
Hmm.
it got switched over from a weekly print publication, and they have an online site too, to a monthly, and they added a lot of pages to it as well. So it was called Boxing News all the years, but now it's called Boxing News Monthly. Yeah, it's a great publication. It's based in the UK, but it
Yes,
goes
that's what I was gonna say. It's the
worldwide.
UK. That's
Yeah,
awesome, Jack. Now, I know that, as they say, birds fly south in the summer and well, in the winter.
they do.
And
The summer and winter.
it's the winter. It's the
Well,
winter.
let them
Everyone
go to
knows.
heck where they want, the birds. Who cares?
Well, we know you're a New Yorker by way of Rockaway, but I personally know, and looks like the internet knows too, because when I looked you up today, it says you vacation in Boca Raton, Florida, and you are have often been spotted with J. Russell Peltz in the South Florida area, the Hall of Fame promoter. Is that
Oh,
true?
I didn't know that. How does that come out? How do you investigate that? I meet Russell. He's next town over to me when I'm in Florida for the winter. I came back to New York a little early. I had some business this particular year, but I was there in Florida. I meet with Russell. We get together for lunch. Now, there's a legendary promoter. He promoted, wow, some 50 years or something
Wow.
in at the Philadelphia Spectrum. So he really is a legendary boxing promoter and a friend. But he's still in the business as a manager right now. He wrote his own book called $30 in a Cut Eye,
Okay.
too. But I'm not going to expand on his book.
Yes.
I'm going to just promote my own now.
Yeah, now beyond boxing news, I know that you are a contributor a lot to the Fight Journal and also Boxing News Online. You're one of the sport's most respected historians, Jack. How's that been for you?
I think, believe it or not, a lot of people might refer to me as a historian. I don't consider myself one at all, and I'm going to tell you why. Being knowledgeable in a sport doesn't make someone a historian as knowledgeable as they might be. And I'm not saying I'm so knowledgeable. There are people out there who could tell you what went on in 1913 a little quicker than I could, for example. But I'm pretty knowledgeable compared to the vast majority of media members of fans. Okay,
Mhm.
I'll put it that way. I'm not going to be overly modest, but a historian compiles data, and their data is very organized. Okay, they could look something up a snap of the finger. My material's all over the place. I'm the equivalent of, Sonia, you could relate to this, not you yourself, of an attorney who has things all splattered all over the office, and they're
Oh
searching to
boy.
find their files.
Yes.
That's me with my boxing stuff, but it doesn't matter because people aren't calling me to look stuff up. Because usually a lot of things I have up here, number one, and number two, things have changed in society where where things would have to be put away like magazine stories for research, and that's still important. Old stories, you can look so much up online these days.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah, you can, and that's really big. I mean, it's so funny how these years fly by, and honestly, I actually have a fear of being that disorganized attorney, Jack, because I know how I am when I'm working on projects or whatever. And I remember my first job out of college. I worked for this law firm, and this paralegal came into the office. And everyone knows I'm from North Carolina. I'm from a rural area, so I had never had exposure to anybody really in the city. And I moved to Richmond, Virginia, right out of college, and that was the city to me. And the girl came in, and we're still connected to this day. So, Alex, if you're watching, you'll remember this. And she says, "Are all these items on this desk yours?" And I'm like, "Yes, I'm just trying to get everything organized." And she's like, "Oh my God, please just go make stacks of everything because Chris is going to come in here and he's going to go crazy because he feels like if your desk is cluttered, that means your work product is going to be cluttered. There's no sense of organization." And at 23 years old, right out of college, I never forgot that. That was a lesson that stuck with me, and every job I've had since, even if it involved a lot of files and papers, I've always made a mental note that once you take everything out, just make small stacks because I never wanted anybody to come in and say that it looked like I was unorganized. And I've worked for attorneys that I've literally almost fallen in their offices because there's stacks of files all over the floor, and they know where the stacks are, and they'll say, "Go to this stack this far from the wall and pull this out." And you're like, "How do you know these things?" So I definitely, just a little plug there. I totally get that, but I know you are very meticulous just from the exposure I've had with you over the last couple of years, and I just know that that's not you. So maybe you're not in the age group to be a historian, but you've been able to preserve the history of the sport itself, and that's very highly commemorative and plausible. So thank you for that, Jack. Let's talk a little bit about your book, Michael Jinks Spinks, an authorized biography, just released on March 3rd here. Now this book is the definitive account of the life and career of Michael Spinks. Jack, you actually in this book demonstrate decades of old school reporting and personal relationships within the sport to chronicle his unique journey, including the historic rise he had from the Olympic gold medalist to the first reigning lift heavyweight champion to win the world heavyweight title, as well as two fight series against Larry Holmes. You documented those, and you took a deep dive into Spinks Jinx and his life outside of the ring, actually written with the cooperation of Michael himself. How was that? And can you
How
go
did
into?
you get that material? I didn't know that stuff was out for someone to look up now. Wow, you're
I have
good. How did
listen. I have my ways of finding out things, and no, I
Yeah.
didn't. No, I didn't Google it. I went through research channels. So,
Cool, because my publisher sent me the press release, which looked pretty good, was 90% good, but I wanted it to be tweaked, and I gave it to them a week ago, and I'm still waiting to get the darn release back for them to for me to approve for them to send out. But
sounds
maybe
like
they
you need to
send it
get me
out.
to do it for you.
Yeah. Oh, please tell me. But what was the question? I'm sorry,
So
Sonia.
I was just wondering, chronic going back in history and looking at Spink's jinx, as well as taking us through some of his personal relationships, as well as his journey as a champion, from light heavyweight champion all the way to the world heavyweight title, and the two fight series, the major series against Larry Holmes. How was that, actually getting this all pen to paper? How long did you actually take to work on this project, Jack?
It took me about to write the actual book about 8 months. The writing itself was secondary, but I wanted to be meticulous, so I watched a lot of old fight films. Now,
Mm-hmm.
every fight film I could get on Michael, a bunch of interviews from the past on Michael. I knew a lot about him as was, but all the little details, getting in touch with people to talk to, like old opponents, people involved in his career.
Oh
His
wow.
brother, his brother Leon, who had passed away, but I spoke to Leon's, former wife, and so on, and just everyone who I thought had some type of link to Michael that would be worthwhile. But in some cases, I didn't speak to everybody because it was an authorized biography. So I respected Michael's boundaries. A few people he preferred I not really speak with.
Mm-hmm.
So I respected his wishes. Okay. And there's certain things too, like that I wrote about in the book. They talk about fighters, whether they have dementia, this or that. And Michael was tested yearly at the Cleveland Clinic uh, for that particular thing. It's a program that they have where they test former fighters, and
Mm-hmm.
they have HIPAA laws. Even though I'm his biographer, I have to go on what he tells me.
Wow.
I can't start investigating, or if he doesn't want me to speak, like I said to any individual, I can't call that. It wouldn't be ethical if I called that individual and tried to get some information, against his wishes in any way, shape, or form. So I
Right.
cooperated with Michael. He understood to a point, because I told him at the beginning of this book, it's not going to be a fan book. I'm not going to be a
Mm-hmm.
fanboy. There are going to be parts of this book and times you're going to feel tremendously uncomfortable talking to me, because the questions I'm going to ask you, I'm going to make you feel tremendously uncomfortable. And I expect you to answer those questions very honestly. And I said, once in a while, I'll adhere to your wishes and not put something in once in a while. But
Mm-hmm.
that's only going to be like a rare request. And you're going to have to limit the amount of times you tell me you don't want to talk about something, I shouldn't put something in. And I said, some topics are going to be important enough where I'm going to insist they be in. And we had a contract that said, really, I have editorial control, that I would have editorial control over the book. But I would respect his boundaries. And I did. There were some things like, I don't want to get into the particulars who he asked me not to talk to or so on.
Mm-hmm.
And interviewing people like old fighters, this and that, you had to take into consideration who may have been affected by their years in the ring,
Right.
who I could have talked to, who I couldn't talk to. And most people would talk on record for the book, but there were a few people who really didn't quite want to talk. I mean, and that's their right not to talk if they didn't want to.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and hello to Anthony, Azam, and of course our affiliates over at All Things Football from Ladies Perspective. Thank you for coming on and saying hello.
They do.
Um, Jack, that's definitely understandable because and I'm sure you are aware of this. if someone wants to sit down and write a biography about your life, there's going to be things that you're just like, yeah, let's focus a little bit more on this and less on that. Or if you're me, I'm going to say, I don't want you to write about a certain segment at all.
I, I got to tell you the funniest thing. I'm going to share this here.
Thank you. Yeah.
Michael's now, one of the chapters was on Flo Anthony. She's had the craziest relationship with Michael. She was a publicist in boxing amongst other things, and she was a gossip woman. I got to be
Mhm.
careful. I can't say gossip girl, a gossip woman, like for the New York Post, amongst others, and for all these shows like the Ricky Lake Show, etc., etc., etc. And right as the book was going to press, I wrote a chapter on her because of how involved she was in his career and in boxing. She gets married to him as the book's about to go to press, but whatever.
Oh,
But Michael was kind of half living with her while I was doing the book. They were a couple, but she has an apartment in New York, and Michael has a big house in Delaware. And he would be commuting back and forth between Delaware and New York. And I had to ask Michael, I was asking him about his past relationships.
mm-hmm.
He was feeling uncomfortable with her there. But listen, Michael wasn't always faithful to her. He said he thought he was, and she goes, really? But Michael is cringing as I'm questioning him, and I got to do it for the book. I
Yes.
got to do it for the book. He is cringing and he's facing me and looking in pain the whole time. But after our session's over and it's time for me to leave after I was there about 3, 4 hours or whatever, he walks me to the door and for the first time he smiles and goes like this. He gives me one of these. He gave me a look like the way these things are.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
his demeanor when I was facing him kind of like changed for moments. I got a big kick out of that. But I got to give Michael and Flo Anthony, who's now his wife and business manager. She's been with him since the 1980s. But that's a
Oh,
story in itself. I talk about
yeah.
patience, and it's technically the first marriage for both. Technically,
Oh,
okay. That's
okay.
the crazy thing about it, and I got to give them a lot of credit because normally in a biography, the person doesn't want anything to make them look bad. And I wrote some things about Michael Spinks where he had some difficulties before that didn't make him look good. That's for sure. Let's say made him look bad in a sense, but he accepted it because it had to be part of his story, and she accepted it. So it says a lot about them for not trying to squash that.
Yeah, I get that. And Scott, thank you for joining us too. Jack,
It,
that's very direct. Jack, you have a question here. Scott wants to know what was the one thing during your interview that surprised you the most? I mean,
uh,
the most
it
part.
shouldn't have surprised me the most. Michael Spinks' story is unique. I I don't approve of what he did, but it's his life. He trusted his fortune and money to his promoter and best friend, Butch Lewis. Butch Lewis managed Michael Spink's life. He told
Mhm.
him how much he was getting paid for a fight, and then Butch would pay Michael's bills and give him an allowance. He never paid
Wow.
him the full amount, but I have no doubt that Butch cared about Michael Spinks. He did a great job moving him as a fighter, his career. But Michael Spink's last fight was in 1988, and Butch Lewis passed away in 2011. Till that point, the 23 years after he retired, Butch would be paying all his expenses. When Michael became world heavyweight champion, he upped his allowance from 1,500 a month to 10,000 a month.
Oh
It
my
sounds like a
goodness.
lot of money, but it
Yeah.
sounds like a lot of money, 10,000 a month. But when you think of the amount of money you earned as a heavyweight champion and what it's drawing in interest, you could afford to give the 10,000 a month. But Michael's bills would be sent to Butch Lewis's office, and Butch Lewis did pay him off. But as soon as Butch Lewis died, uh, and Butch had been in poor health leading up to it, but Michael never thought, what becomes of me if something happens to Butch? The money, Michael's bills stopped getting paid. His health
Wow.
insurance lapsed. The taxes weren't paid. He was destitute for a little while, and Michael had to sue Butch Lewis's estate to get some of the money back. And then they found out that Butch had set up a retirement account. Michael remembered from many, many years ago, and that helped Michael out. And Butch did some good things. When Michael bought his home in Delaware, and he lives down the block from Joe Biden in Delaware, too.
Oh, okay.
They paid the house off completely in the beginning, no mortgage. So Michael isn't wealthy today, but he's comfortable. Okay, he's comfortable. He's well off. He's comfortable. As long as he's careful in how he spends his money, he'll be fine the rest of his life. But at the end of the chapter, after Butch left him destitute, his trainer, so on, his promoter, excuse me, I said, if you had to do it all over again with Butch, would you? He goes, absolutely, hang by Butch. And I said, if Butch could come back to life and said, get rid of Jack, we don't need him writing this book, would you get rid of me? He said, you'd be out the door in a moment. And Michael and myself on really good terms, but he was being honest with me.
Yeah.
Butch had this stranglehold on his head for whatever reason. His loyalty and love to Butch was so great, to Butch Lewis, who was 10 years older than Michael, that no matter what Butch did to him, he couldn't be angry at Butch. No matter, but I think what happened with Butch Lewis's promoter, his mindset was he was going to take care of Michael the rest of Michael's life, but the money was running dry because a month or so before Butch Lewis passed away, he threw himself a 65th birthday party. And Butch Lewis was buddies with Denzel Washington and Robert Johnson, who owned the Black Entertainment Network and who owned the Charlotte Hornets, by the way. He sold it to Michael Jordan. They were Butch Lewis's buddies. And he made this big bash for like $100,000 and reportedly went into Michael's life insurance policy to pay for it because Butch had power of attorney.
Oh, wow. And hello to James.
Hey, J-Train.
J-Train coming on.
Yeah, that's a good one. Dysfunctional. Yeah, I mean, dysfunctional if you trust anyone outside of your spouse in a great marriage to handle all your money. That is a no-no, because I write in the book, eventually, you know what the mindset becomes? The person starts thinking, well, it's our money, because they've had it for so long. That's kind of the mindset, and they kind of dipping into it little by little.
Yeah, and that's definitely the things that comes out when you're writing, these biographies and autobiographies. You're seeing everything firsthand. Jack and I need to take a small break, but we will be right back. Jack Hirsch, renowned author and boxing extraordinaire. Jack, we'll be right back.
Hey everyone, it's Pearson. I'm so blessed to have been crowned 2026 Miss Jabberwock, and I just want to say thank you so much to everyone who has supported me with fundraisers or just donations in general and everything, including my parents and also Sasha for using her platform and also helping me as well. Just thank you so much. All glory to God. Thank you.
right, and Jack and I are back. This is our second half of the show. Jack, you know these time goes by so fast when you're having fun, and this is absolutely amazing. If you're just joining us, I'm sitting down with Jack Hirsch, the author of the Michael Spinks autobiography. He's going to give you a little bit more information as we get ready to wrap up in the end about how to purchase it once again. Having a great conversation here. Jack, you've talked about some of the background on the book. But in general, you've written thousands of articles. But why was now the right time for the definitive authorized story of Michael Spinks, in your opinion?
It it just happened. I happened to come upon Michael Spinks as a topic by chance, and I don't know why it took me so long. Why, and I don't know why someone else didn't take the initiative with all the great authors and write a book on Michael Spinks. There was one book written many years ago called One Punch from the Promised Land. It was a book on Leon and Michael Spinks, but Michael wasn't interviewed for the book. He
Mhm.
wasn't interviewed for the book, and I don't believe Leon was interviewed for the book, even though it was an excellent book. It was an excellent book, and I recommend someone, get that book as well. But this was, an authorized biography with Michael. I mean, that I feel is the difference between that and maybe other books that
Mhm.
might be coming out. But I was on the phone with a buddy of mine, Don Majeski. Don Majeski, for years, worked for Butch Lewis Productions, Michael Spinks' promoter. He was around Michael Spinks for years, and in the office, he had all these stories. We're talking and laughing about it on the phone. And then it hits me all of a sudden. Why don't I write a book on this? I say, Don, well, you have a lot of stories to tell me, right? You could help me out. He goes, absolutely. And before that, I had a couple of other world champions I was going to do a book on. One of them I knew very, very well. I met with him and his wife. We sat down and we were about to, I just needed him to okay it, but he was too nervous to talk about things in his past. Too
I understand.
nervous, maybe figured people in higher places, whatever. But then I saw it wasn't going to work out. So it wasn't going to be done. And another one, I saw the turmoil in his personal life. He wanted me to write the book on him. Oh, we got to do it. We got to do it. We got to do it. But I spoke to someone very close to him, and he said, this might not be worth your aggravation. They're going to think that this book is making you all this money, and they're going to be this and that and this and that. And I got a bad feeling. I needed a person I could be very comfortable with, very
Right.
easygoing and not have all this turmoil. And it had to be convenient to where we were going to meet. Okay. And with Michael Spinks, it was a perfect location in Manhattan where I could meet at his now wife's apartment, have all the time there. And it's
Yeah.
hard to do a book if you're meeting someone at, like, let's say, a Starbucks. You can get away with it. I did it in Boca Raton. Leon Spinks' son, Corey Spinks, the nephew of Michael Spinks, who actually was the undisputed world welterweight champion. I met him at a Starbucks and we talked. That's great for one afternoon. But can you imagine every week we show up at the same Starbucks and we're there
Right.
3, 4 hours? I'm conscious of it. I mean, how many cups of coffee and pastries am I going to get? It
And
just
then everybody's going to be following you all around at some point.
Sonia, I hope I'm not insulting you. You're not one of those people that go to Panera Bread and spend 4 hours there, are you? With your laptop.
No. And you know what? I never understand that. Even like I have classmates that say they go places like that and study, and I'm like, how? It's so distracting with everybody coming in and out. I go in, I don't even think I've ever dined inside of a Panera Bread or a Starbucks. If I do, it's within 10 minutes, and it's because it's cold and I don't want to walk right back outside. But I've never spent hours at either location.
People like to hang out on Boxing Hall of Fame weekend. I went with some of the guys out to dinner. But we wanted to talk boxing all night, so we went to a Dunkin' Donuts.
Oh, wow.
Eventually, they started sweeping by our feet. And when the broom
Oh.
brushes against your foot, you know it's time to
Yes,
go.
time to go. I
Yeah.
mean, you brought up Leon a couple of times. Michael was often
Right.
overshadowed by his brother Leon's more exuberant personality. What
Yeah, yeah.
most
Still is.
surprising thing, about that and the difference of him and Michael's character while you were working on the book with him?
Oh, they're different as night and day. The brothers were very close,
Hmm.
and Michael loved Leon and vice versa. Leon would go to all his fights, but for fun, I would ask someone from random, have you ever heard of Michael Spinks? I could be like in the department store, I could be food shopping, and they could see like I have a shirt on. It could be like a Jet shirt, for example, a Yankee shirt. And I
Hmm.
don't know why. I could start talking with someone, have a fun interaction. I'll say, by the way, have you ever heard of the name of Michael Spinks? More often than not, they confuse him with Leon. They say, "Oh yeah, yeah, he had the gap of teeth in his, between." Oh, he was crazy. He was a wild man. He beat
Yep.
Muhammad Ali for the title, and I go, "No, that's Leon. Michael
Right.
Spinks." You know, Hardcore boxing fans know the difference. He was overshadowed by his brother Leon, even though he had a much greater career. Leon was a tabloid guy before Mike Tyson became one. He'd be
Yes,
in
he
the
was.
tabloids because he'd have like a wild existence. Michael would do things the correct way. Leon really wouldn't quite do it that way. Michael was also known, unfortunately, the only fight he lost his last fight when he got knocked out by Mike Tyson.
Hmm.
So a lot of people remember that, but when they rate him as a fighter, thankfully they give Michael Spinks a pass on that. One fight, the end of his career. But the image of it is that Michael Spinks froze in that fight. He was scared. So when he admits he was scared to a degree, but he was
Right.
scared in other fights as well. And Michael Spinks doesn't have an ego at all, Sonja. If you told him, I think this guy was a better fighter than you, he'd say, yeah, you're entitled to your opinion. It wouldn't bother him. Most athletes, it bothers. They want to be
Hmm.
rated as, the top guy. But Michael genuinely doesn't care, how he's rated. He wants people to have a good opinion of him, but he doesn't get hype about things like that.
Yeah, that's funny. I wonder how his family felt, their family felt, two brothers, both of them professional boxers. Did he ever say, that they were fighters growing up, got into a lot of fights, and so that's how they got involved in doing something
Oh yeah,
professional?
yeah. That's how he got into boxing. He told me, Michael, he was the terror of his family. Even though Leon was like 3 years older, Michael used to be beating up, his siblings.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how viciously, but he had this kind of sixth sense of, showing he's the boss. One day, Leon snapped, and Leon put a beating on Michael. He really beat him up good. And Michael was impressed. He goes, "Wow, how did you learn how to fight like that, Leon?" He said Leon was putting all type of moves on him. And Leon
Oh,
told him he's been going to the boxing gym, and Michael begged Leon to bring him along, and Leon did. The brothers were very close. They always were very close.
well, that's definitely good. Now, moving in a little bit to focus more on Michael. Now, you titled part of this book Jinx, which refers to his devastating right hand. In your opinion, where does Michael's right hand rank amongst the greatest power punches in history?
One of the best. One of the best. You talk about the Sphinx Jinx, and yeah, I mean, tremendous. He could hit. He could hit hard with both hands. He hit really hard with his left hand as well. It, it rhymed nicely.
Mhm.
Sphinx Jinx. So
Yes,
it kind
yes.
of, thinking of a title of the book was difficult. I couldn't
Mhm.
think of anything. I was thinking of Michael Spinks, history making champion. These cliches are so
Yeah,
common. So I thought finally, let me keep it short and sweet. Michael Jinx Spinks.
I love that.
Short and sweet to the point, an authorized biography. Why come up with, necessarily a fancy title, per se? I mean, I couldn't think of one. I'm sure there's one out there. maybe a year or two from now, a certain title is going to hit me, and I'm going to think, oh, that would have been good to use that title. But I'm happy with the title as is.
Now, I personally love that. And it's like you said, it's short. People will remember how to get it. It rhymes, it's catchy. And so you have to think about things like that. Now, his move from light heavyweight to heavyweight to face Larry Holmes. Let's talk about one of those matches he had in 1985. This was a historic matchup. Can you take us through the atmosphere in the locker room or the press row that night?
Yeah, Michael was trying to do something that was never done in boxing history, become the first light heavyweight champion to win the world heavyweight championship. And every other light heavyweight who tried before had failed. Billy Conn came a little close until he got knocked out by Joe Louis. And it was thought that Michael was going to be overmatched. Now, he brought in Mackie Shilstone. Mackie Shilstone actually worked with him as a light heavyweight, and they transformed Michael's body. Michael was ahead of the time in the way he trained. Boxers would train in a long, slow distance. They do their road work, long, slow distance. They had a traditional boxing workout. Oh, you hit the speed bag, you hit the heavy bag, you jump rope, you shadow box, you spar. The typical things. Michael would be doing intervals on the track. He'd be doing special type of weight training. He'd have a special type of diet. And Michael always had to make the 175-pound light heavyweight limit. When he fought Larry Holmes, he was 200 pounds for that fight. He actually 199 and three quarters. We break it off to 200 pounds. And that was shock number one. And people thought it was artificial weight. But Michael just was like in great, great shape. And he wasn't confident at first he beat Larry Holmes. And he signed for the fight. He says to Butch Lewis, do you think I can beat him? He had doubts. But when Butch said he could, Michael says, okay, let's go out there and try to do it. That was his attitude. And the fight is also known, the first Larry Holmes fight. Larry Holmes is 48-0. He wanted to tie Rocky Marciano's record of 49-0 in that fight, and thought Spinks would be an easy opponent. And Larry Holmes did talk to me for the book. And he said he thought he could just lay on Michael and tire him out.
Oh, wow.
But it was a close fight. Michael justifiably got the decision. The rematch was another close fight. Could have gone either way.
Yeah, those are pivotal moments. And Jack, you've been ringside for over 4 decades, excuse me, and you still use a pen and paper while everyone else is mostly on laptops. How does that tactic approach give you the digital reporting misses?
I don't, because I'm not when Boxing News is a weekly and I cover show, I always had a 24-hour window to get it out. 24 hours. So I could take my notes and then go home and do the report. That's why one special story meant a lot to me. I did a story that I was truly on deadline. When I say deadline, not a 24-hour deadline, like a 45-minute deadline, only once at the International Boxing Hall of Fame. I did a story for the Virgin Island Daily News. That's their big paper in the Virgin Island. Mm-hmm. And one of their fighters, Julian Jackson, was inducted in the Hall of Fame. I had 45 minutes to get the story out.
Oh, wow.
And I got it out, and it was like I felt like I won a world championship because I had never had a deadline like that. And I remember just sitting there, out at a cafe, having my meal, just looking out, feeling so good about myself. But I've had a 24-hour, window usually in the past with Boxing News when it was a weekly. If there was a show on a Saturday night, they really didn't need it until very early in the morning, Monday, meaning Sunday night, my time. So I always had a gentle deadline.
Yeah, those deadlines are something, and kudos to you for getting that done in 45 minutes. I can only imagine
Yeah.
You had to be like, your blood pressure had to be through the roof because that is less than an hour. That is extremely
That
fast.
was a quick one, but that was important to me that I actually showed I could do it. Otherwise, I'd always be wondering, was I a deadline guy? You know what the difference was? I compared. I'm like a middle distance slash marathon runner, and those are like, and then you tell me, and those guys can't run 100 meters and compete at all. But imagine one of them could compete in 100 meters, not win the race necessarily, but not get blown out. That's what it felt like. I was running 100 meters,
Wow.
speed. And yeah,
Wow. Well,
I
and we
love
know
track
you.
and field, by the way.
Yes, and I know you still run and all that good stuff, Jack. So that's a great comparison there. Now, just want to go down memory lane for a little bit. You saw the Ali versus Frazier duo in the Garden in '71. How did that
Sitting in the
single night
last
change?
row, teenager sitting in the last row.
Wow.
How I got a ticket to that fight is crazy. Tickets sold out like that. That was the greatest sporting event in history by far. I
Hmm.
mean, like I even refer in the book when they talk about the Tyson Spinks fight, trying to compare it to Ali and Frazier. I was polite by saying that's a major stretch.
Hmm.
If and I'm Spinks' biographer. If the Spinks Tyson fight, if they put it on the undercard of Ali Frazier for the interest, we would want the Spinks Tyson fight to get over with quickly because we'd be so anxious to see Ali and Frazier. That's how much bigger Ali and Frazier was than anything else. But so what happened? It was $20, for a seat up in the rafters. It sounds like peanuts, but tickets were priced 20 to 150 at that time. This was 1971, and I sent the $20 in the mail a couple of days later. And miraculously, a ticket comes back. They not only didn't pocket the money, they sent me a ticket in the
Oh
mail. It's
my
like, what?
goodness.
And years later, I found out how I got in. I was close with Tommy Kenville. He did public relations for Madison Square Garden for the Knicks and for boxing, so on. And he was handling ticket requests with others for the fight at the Century Ali and Frazier. He said that we sold out immediately in a snap of a finger, but there were a few seats, single seats scattered in the garden.
Oh
He said,
wow.
and he said, because you asked for one seat and by chance we took your envelope, you got a ticket. It was like the biggest fluke, he said, that you got a ticket for the event. But I'm going to tell you something, a story. That Ali Frazier first fight was the most exciting day of my life. I'm not saying best day.
Wow.
There's a difference between exciting and best day. Most exciting
Right.
day of my life. Listen to this. 50 years to the day, 50 years to the day, I had a grandson born. Talk about
Oh,
karma, 50 years to the day.
that is
What are the
so
odds of
cool,
that
Jack.
happening? That's insane, isn't it?
I love that. That
Yeah.
is so amazing. Oh,
And listen, I come the 50th anniversary kid, but listen to this too. When Frazier knocked Ali down in the 15th round, Ali's back was to me from upstairs. And I remember my thought, the punch was like a shot out of a cannon, I thought. And my
oh,
grandson was named Cannon.
oh my
This is
goodness.
all like the
What?
karma is insane. You could probably Google a story I wrote on Ali and Frazier. Just anyone interested, just Google my name with Ali Frazier, and you could probably come upon that story.
Jack, I love that. And I'm one of these people that loves like number scenarios and sequences and facts that stick like that. When you talk about kismet, those are kismet
50
moments.
years to the day. I
Yes.
mean, I mean, what are the? And a funny thing too. A close buddy of mine who's a boxing manager, Keith Sullivan. He had a daughter born to him the same day, 55 years to the day. So I
Wow.
told him, I'm never going to learn your daughter's name. I'm just going to call her 55
Yeah, five
from
five.
now on. How's 55, and that's that.
I love that. And see, and now I'll remember your grandson's name too. And the big historical fact behind
Wow.
that. Um, Jack, I had a few more questions to ask you, but I don't think we're gonna have
Well,
time to get to them
we could
all.
talk. Yeah, we could talk the Jets if you want. We could talk
Yeah, we're good.
football
So we're
too.
good.
I'm good.
Let's
I'll just hold. I'll wrap up the book.
no, no,
Yeah.
no, no. So I only because yes, I want to make sure we plug that back in. Let me put the spotlight back on you there, Jack. Give me 1 second. I need to switch you over and put you here. All right. Let me take this banner down. Actually, this is the book. Jack is the author. Hold that book up for me, Jack. It's now available on Amazon. And how else did you say,
And
Jack? Was
Barnes and
available?
Noble. And the Barnes and Noble site. Some other sites as well, but they're too numerous to get into.
Yeah, just look up the book, Michael Jinks Spinks, and you can, and it'll tell you, just Google it. We'll drop some links in a little bit later on after this airs. Jack, we will definitely re-air this. Do want to ask you one more boxing question before I ask you about your beloved Jets. Let me see here. Let me switch myself over. That's that. And we are back. Okay. All right. And I need to actually make this correction now that I realize you have that on there as Jinx things. All right. So, Jack, there is, everybody, every generation thinks they're making the previous generation's situation better, no matter what it is. And the same thing is true with boxing. Now going from the traditional 15 rounds down to 12, do you think that the sport actually lost a certain theater of the soul when those last 3 rounds were cut?
As it turns out, yes and no. When you're so used to something, you're resistant to change. We see that in sports all the time. Well, we heard it about instant replay. You can't take responsibility away from the umpires, the officials in football, basketball. We heard about, well, you're taking the human element out of it. When they had the designated hit in baseball, some people were complaining about that. I think we're used to 12 rounds. We're fine. It does give the contestants enough time to exhibit their skills, but I think the problem with boxing isn't that 15 to 12 rounds. I think it's the overall disorganization. It seems that everyone's a world champion this way, in one way or the other. It just, I got into a debate with Dr. Paul Semendinger once with Mac on our debate show. Which sport had a greater history, boxing or baseball? I argued on behalf of boxing, in which you had great champions ahead of baseball. I could say Jack Johnson was the world heavyweight champion in 1908. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, what was going on in baseball back then? Nothing that historical in comparison. But now I'd advocate for baseball because boxing is so screwed up now. The way the sport is, they have a fight tonight. Sebastian Fondura against Keith Thurman. Keith Thurman's had two fights in
Yes.
6.5 years, and it's on pay-per-view. Are they kidding? I don't bother to get these. It's my sport. I don't bother to get these pay-per-view rip-off shows. I'll catch it on YouTube the next day.
Yeah, and that's important. What thank you so much, James. Thank you.
Thanks, James.
Yes, our
James is a tough adversary.
yes, he is. He's so
Um,
intelligent. I often tell him to get into law
he
school.
wants to
He's
do
very
to me in the
intelligent.
debates what Tyson did to Spinks.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's what he tries to do. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if there's one lesson from Michael Spink's life outside of the ring, Jack, with you writing this autobiography, what would you hope that readers take away from the biography?
It's actually a biography when I write it about him. What they could take away from it, Michael Spinks is one of the few living legends in the sport of boxing. There are very few legends around. Sadly, they pass. How, how many fighters are truly legends now? You could look at Sugar Ray Leonard. You could look at Roberto Duran, Larry Holmes, Tommy Hearns, Michael Spinks.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are few others. Ruben Oliveras, famous Mexican fighter, but how many legendary fighters are there? I know a lot of years ago, I got to the Boxing Hall of Fame, and I would be around these legends like Archie Moore, Gene Fulmer, Carmen Basilio, but now it's like a new crop, legends, come in and Michael Spinks is definitely one of them.
Yeah, that's definitely good. And of course, you being an educator in the NYC area for over 30 years, I know you had interviews at night while you were educating during the day.
So,
I know that had to do something with your interviews as
you know
well.
what I'm proud of? You know what I'm proud of, kind of? What I've done more than anyone else. I presented more awards to high profile boxers than anyone else in the business. It's not
That's
even close. I presented an award to Michael Spinks before this book. That's the only time I ever had an interaction. I presented an award to Leon Spinks. I presented, you could catch it on YouTube, the Floyd Mayweather Manny Pacquiao fight at a year.
yeah, I had to give you an applause there, Jack.
It's my warning to quiet down. We're about to end the show. It's close to being ending anyway.
Yeah, no. We got about 2 minutes here.
Oh, okay, sure.
I want to talk to you real quick and absolutely amazing.
The
Congratulations
Jets,
again on
the
this
Jets.
book. Super proud of you, Jack. I remember when you first started talking
Okay.
about it. Now it's
Well, let's
here.
forget the book and let's cover the Jets in a couple of minutes we
Yes,
have.
so the
And
Jets,
Sonja, do you think the Jets should take Ty Simpson with the number 16th overall pick in the draft? They have two number ones.
I know number 2 and number 16 overall picks. If you guys don't get rid of them, they've been focusing on bringing more adults in the room as opposed to the youth. So I don't know, bringing Geno Smith back is full circle, but I don't think they're banking on him. I think they will grab Ty Simpson out of Alabama. They've recently hosted him for a private workout interview and a dinner with general manager Darren Mogi and Aaron Glenn, Jack.
Yeah, they have a great track record, Mogi and Glenn last year. Who cares? Please do not draft Ty Simpson with the 16th overall pick. This is going to be a lost year. Gear for next year when you have a great quarterback crop. The best of the bunch is Trinidad Chambliss, who's going to be great. I predict he wins the Heisman next year, Chambliss, but he's going to be great regardless. Maybe Arch Manning develops, maybe a couple of the other.
He's the reason why this draft class is not good this season.
Yeah, well, the college draft class will be good. Ty Simpson is, I mean, forget about it. If Carson Beck is available in the 4th round, draft him, take a flyer on him. But, even trade to move into the 3rd round to grab Carson Beck, who's probably going to be there. But don't count on him to be a quarterback of the future. But, you take a chance on him. Geno Smith is not even going to be the starting quarterback.
That's what I was going to ask you.
He won't last the whole year as a starting quarterback. It's a loss. Look, how good is Geno? As soon as he leaves the Seahawks win the Super Bowl. And as soon as he goes to the Raiders get the number 1 overall pick in the draft. Give me a break. Come on.
Yeah, and he was with Pete Carroll. So there's that. But Jack, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. We'll have to have you on again. Make sure you guys go out and grab that book. Michael Jinx
Spinks, Amazon.
Yes, let me put Jack on. Oh, where'd you go, Jack? There you go. Let me put the spotlight on you for a second here. On Amazon and did you say Borders?
Barnes and Noble.
Either
one, Amazon or Barnes and Noble. Most people go to Amazon to their website.
Yes, have people go to Amazon and we'll get that taken care of. Jack, thank you so much for joining me as always. Thank you, everybody. Have a great Saturday. Join them in the morning for the big Sunday morning sports show. Jack, always a pleasure. You guys have a great weekend.